Hare Krishna. Will start our session today by paying our obeisances to His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder Acharya for International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So we are on our journey for 8th chapter, and we covered, like we know that 8th chapter has 28 verses, and the title is Attaining the Supreme. So I'll try to move the slides a bit faster because I see there's a bit of lag. I can see on my mobile. But let me know if you are not able to see the slide which I'm talking about. In this chapter of chapter 8, we covered the first two sessions last time, right? Which is Arjuna's questions. And these came from the seed verses of 7th chapter, which we saw. So Arjuna asked questions to Krishna, and Krishna answers those in verse 3rd and 4th, where Krishna answers 7 of them. And the last question was about Prayanakali, which is the time of death, which is answered by Krishna throughout the 8th chapter, right? So can somebody, does anybody remember which were those questions asked by Arjuna? So the first one was, what is Brahman? And then I'll let you, anybody of you. What is Brahman? What is Adhyatma, right? Then what is Adibhut? What was Adidaiva? And then he asked about Adiyagni, right? And then, Prayanakala, right? So, and how, in Krishna will be found in our body as a super soul, right? So Adiyagni, that's so. So then we learned about remembering Krishna at the time of death, right? So just because this section is pretty important for us to not only know, but also to digest, so I have just put in this slide, which shows remembering Krishna at the time of death, right? So this covers from verse 5 to verse 8, yeah? So verse 5, Krishna states, that, so Arjuna asked about the question of Prayanakali, right? So Krishna starts saying that, whatever at the end of, one's life, if they quit their body remembering Krishna, then they will definitely attain Krishna's nature, which is Satchitananda, right? The translation. So that is the result of remembering Krishna at the time of death, right? Now, after that, what if somebody doesn't remember Krishna at the time of death, right? So 6th verse spoke that in that case, whatever one remembers when leaving the body, that state he will remember without fail. And we saw what were the two factors, right, which will decide your next life. There were two factors which we compared it with going for a cloth shopping. Does anybody remember? Two factors which determine our next life.
One
yes,
is
sorry, did somebody say something?
Mataji, one is karma.
Yes, right.
The other one is what you are remembering while leaving your body.
Right, your likes, right?
Your likes and whatever is stored in the mind.
Yes, yeah. So your desire, right? Yeah. So desire and karma, right? We compared it to when we go for a shopping of buying clothes, right? What are the two factors which makes us buy it? First is our liking, right? So our desire. And the second was our account, right? Karma, right? So budget. So these are the two main factors, right? Okay. And we linked it with several examples as well, as based on your karma and the desire what you have, you get the next line. Then Krishna, then 8.7 was the verse given for recitation as well. Now, if we are saying that, if Krishna is saying in 8.5, remember me at the time of death, to go back, right? Then how can we do that, right? So Krishna says, tasmat sarveshu kaleshu, that verse, right? Always think of me and carry out your duty. With your activities dedicated to me, mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me. So if you want to go back to Krishna, it should be, we will learn the word again here, abhyasa, right? The practice is the key, right? Of remembering Krishna while performing our duties. And the last verse we concluded was, yes, again, attaining Krishna by how? Remembrance, right? He who meditates on me as Supreme Personality of Godhead is sure to reach him. So there were several kind of 100% guarantee shlokas last week, which we went through, right? While we were going through also, that if you remember Krishna, you will for sure go back. That's the guarantee which Krishna is given, right? And the second thing, whatever you remember at the time of death, you will get that. So better to remember Krishna. That should be our practice. And how can we have that happen? We learned it can happen by practice, right? Now, just on moving to the next slow. So I think one thing I just want to highlight here is when we are doing this chapter, I think one thing is it's important to notice that we always talk about, we learned that, right? Last time, art of living, right? This chapter gives us the art of dying. How should we, right? And death is the reality. No matter, we discussed last time that I'm repeating it a bit because we did not have a couple of you last week's session. And we went through how some people are so sensitive, even about hearing about death, oh, don't talk about it, right? But this is reality. And Krishna is giving us here in this chapter that everyone has to undergo it. Nobody can hold it, right? So we have to learn the art of dying so that we don't undergo this cycle of birth and death, right? Repeated cycle of birth. Now, Srimad Bhagavatam also highlights, many points around importance of remembering Krishna. Yeah, and we see again and again in Srimad Bhagavatam and in Bhagavad Gita as well, Krishna highlighting the important word here is, which we see many times, is always remember Krishna, right? And so Srimad Bhagavatam states that all activities culminate in one result. We should always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. Yeah. And what will be the result? We'll be able to remember Krishna, right? And then we don't have to undergo these uncertainties in our life, which we always undergo, right? So the highest perfection of human life, achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty. What is the highest perfection? Is to remember personality of Godhead at the end of the life. This is taken from Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, 1st chapter, 6th shloka, right? So the last statement here, it states, if you see different kind of yogas, we learned from the yoga ladder, So knowledge of matter and spirit is jnana yoga, and practice of mystic powers is what? Dhyana or ashtanga, yeah? And perfect discharge of occupational duty, which is karma yoga, right? Any yoga path, what we have to understand, even from our scriptures, is that the ultimate, the highest perfection for us to reach is remembrance of Krishna, right? So that's the key. Yeah? And further moving into, the next, we learned this verse, right? Is there anyone who haven't sent the recording? Would you like to recite this verse?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, sure. Jyoti Mataji, go ahead.
तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु मम अनुस्मरा युद्धा का मया अर्पिता मानो बुद्धिर मम अवश्य अवश्य ही अस्मशया.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, yes, Mataji. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhya cha my arpita mano buddhir mam evashashya ashamshayaha.
Thank you. Yeah, so tasmat sarveshu kaleshu. Tasmat is therefore. So Krishna says, therefore, sarveshu kaleshu, always, yeah, sarveshu kaleshu, at any time point. Mam anusmara. Mam is, again, mam is highlighted here, right? Mam anusmara, remembering me. Yuddhacha. Here, he's saying Arjuna to perform his duty, which was fighting, yuddhacha. And for us, it is, we have to, mam anusmara yuddhacha. So for us, it is, we have to always remember Krishna while performing our duty, right? Mai arpita mano buddhir, right? So arpita is surrendering, right? Surrendering mano buddhir, mind intelligence. Mam evashyasi asamshaya. We will attain Krishna, mam, right? We'll attain Krishna asamshaya. There is no doubt, he said. There is just no doubt on it, yeah? So, so overall, for us to remember Krishna, that is what Bhagavad Gita is doing to us, right? So purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to bring our attention back to Krishna. It reminds us about Krishna. It makes us remember, right? So be it going through shloka, attending the classes, reading books, what is the whole thing, right? To remember Krishna. And the more we have that practice through chanting, right? What are we doing? We are calling out for Krishna. We are remembering Krishna, right? So throughout all these processes, the only, the overall, base is here what? To remember Krishna, to have that practice, right? That's what Krishna said. How can you do it? How can you do this tasmat sarveshu kaleshu? By practice, by abhyasa, right? And we as sadhakas, that's why that sadhana chart, again and again we see in different chapters, right? Different time points where Krishna is highlighting this for us, that our sadhana should be the key, right? We have to have it strong. And that will make us to reach a point gradually with our purification of heart, to reach a point where we can remember Krishna while doing any duty, right? And one of the things we also saw last time in our last session was that it's a higher consciousness we are seeing here in 8th chapter, right? Here, Krishna is saying, remember me and perform your duty. It was different to chapter 3, where we saw in Karma Yoga that Krishna said, whatever, perform your duty and offer your results to. So that was initial stage, offering results. But here, remembering him comes up front, right? So it's a higher consciousness what we are talking about. Anything we do, we have to think about Krishna and perform, right? Okay. So with that, we move to today's section, which are the next two. So hopefully it is a short session because we are not covering much, heavy topic. So we had the next two sessions like remembering Krishna by Yoga Mishra Bhakti, and the other one was remembering Krishna by pure bhakti. Yeah, these are the two sections we are capturing today. So the first one, from shloka 9 to 13, it talks about remembering Krishna by Yoga Mishra Bhakti. Yeah, and we'll see what Yoga Mishra Bhakti is, in corresponding slides. So, right, Yoga Mishra Bhakti. Let me put in the slide completely because it's taking time. Okay, meanwhile, I'll maybe start a bit explaining. Can you all hear me? Because I see a bit of lag. Yeah, okay, thank you. So Yoga Mishra Bhakti, yeah. So see, in 7th chapter, we learned about Krishna talks about 4 Sukritanas, right? Who can, surrender to Krishna. 4 class of people, right? And then he also spoke about 4 class of people who wouldn't ever surrender, right? We learned that. Now, when Krishna spoke about those 4 class of people who could surrender, right? He called them as magnanimous souls, if you remember, right? Because they perform devotional service to Krishna. And those 4 type of people were Artho, Arthartho, Jignasi, and Jnani, right? Artho are the person who are distressed, who are distressed in life, and they approach to Krishna, thinking that Krishna will take away all the distress, all of it, yeah. And the second class of people were Arthartho, means people who desire material gains. I want huge property, I want profit, I want, fame, all of that. So they approach Krishna, they do devotional service with that, in mind. So Arthartha. And the third class of people were Jignasi, yeah? Jignasa, that inquisitiveness. They want to learn, they are that kind of people who want to learn about, anything which they see, it brings that inquisitiveness. They want to learn more, right? And the 4th category of person was Jnani, one who comes to Krishna in search of knowledge, right? And Krishna called all these 4 class of people magnanimous, right? So now, in the first 3 here, Artho, Arthartho, and Jignasa, we see that they have some purpose coming to Krishna, right? Which is they have bhakti component with them, right? But there is a purpose for them to come to Krishna, right? Now these these class of people are called as karma mishra bhakti. It's a mishra, right? We learned this before. Mishra is mixture, right? So karma mishra bhaktas, they have bhakti component, right? Bhakti component is more than 50% in them, but they have a purpose behind for karma, for their fruitive result, right? So now similarly, the 4th class of person was Jnani. So this class of person, they come to Krishna in search of knowledge, right? So they are called as Jnana Mishra Bhaktas. Okay. Now here we are talking about Yoga Mishra Bhaktas, right? These are for Ashtanga yogis who have, for whom, as they continue, we learned in Ashtanga Yoga also that, after there are first 4 initial stages and then 4, second level stages. They're fine. So Ashtanga, in this we see that for Yoga Mishra Bhakta, the bhakti component again is higher. They are, but they have dhyana component also with it. Yeah. So their objective is to get liberation. Yeah. They worship for liberation. They don't want any sense gratification. They are away from that. And they accept Krishna as personality of God. That we know. Yeah. So Yoga Mishra Bhakta have the bhakti component is more than 50%. Right. But they still have, like the Karma Mishra Bhakta and Jnana Mishra Bhakta, they have a component of dhyana. Okay. So we see that actually, this chapter we will, while we learn about this, there is also that, one of the famous acharyas, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, yeah, his commentary has given some classification of bhaktas, he has given. There are 3 classifications he has given. First is Kevala Bhakta, that is pure bhakti. They are also called as Kevala Bhakta, or you can call them as Ananya Bhakta, or Uttama Bhakta. Yeah. So these are the person who have 100% bhakti component. There is no mishra of anything else. Yeah. The second class of people is Pradhana Bhuta Bhakta, right? So for Pradhana Bhuta, Pradhana is what? Principle, right? So Pradhana Bhuta Bhakta are those who have inclination towards, they have maximum bhakti component, but they have inclination towards, like we learned, karma, jnana, or dhyana. Okay. So if it is, karma inclination a bit, then it is karma mishra bhakta. Jnana, then jnana mishra. Yeah. So like, and the last class of people are guna bhuta bhakta. guna is what? Modes, right? So bhakti is there in them also, but not more than 50%. Bhakti is there, but the predominance is more of karma, jnana, or dhyana. Okay, so those are called as guna bhuta bhaktas. Yeah. So why we call it guna? Like I said, they are influenced by material modes of nature. So even though they have some bhakti component, it's not the maximum. The other factors, the modes are the maximum. Yeah. So so the destination of each of these bhaktas are also different. We have to understand. When we talk about kevala bhakti, which is pure bhakti, yeah, the destination would be Golok Vrindavan. Yeah, back to Krishna. When we talk about pradhana bhuta bhakti, right, they have most bhakti component, but mixture of each, right? So though the destination for them is Vaikuntha planets, and the guna bhuta bhaktas, they may reach maybe Brahman platform, that is the max. This is the max we are working on. Yeah. So to reach any destination, what do we learn here? To reach any destination of absolute truth, we need to have bhakti component for sure. Without that, we cannot go back to Krishna. Not even the Brahma Jyoti. Not, of course, if the first we learned the three absolute truth aspects, right? The Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, right? Yeah. So that is, the whole explanation is for us to, from scriptures and from different places, we have tried to take it from our acharyas. But the main bottom line message here is that without bhakti, we cannot go back. That is the main component. Yeah. So just moving further. Just give me 1 moment. Yeah. So 8th chapter, what does it consist of overall? Yeah. So it's comparison. We can see here, right? Last time we compared, if you remember Krishna while dying, what happens? What is the destination? And if you remember anything else, what happens, right? And similarly, so we are giving a gist here. So results of remembering Krishna versus anything else, we covered that. Describes the process of remembering, the practice of remembering Krishna in Bhakti Yoga and Yoga Mishra Bhakti. Yeah, both. And we'll learn this today, what is the process. Yeah. And then execution of remembering Krishna at the time of death by Bhakti Yogis versus Yoga Mishra Bhaktas. And next time we will cover comparison of physical world and spiritual world, which is also interesting, right? So we will now move, maybe let one of you read. Right. Okay. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, will you be able to?
Yeah, yes, Mataji. Remembering Krishna by Yoga Mishra Bhakti, Bhagavad Gita 8.9, ways of remembering Krishna. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as he who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun and transcendental beyond this material nature. Bhagavad Gita 8.10. Satchakra Yoga, one who at the time of death fixes his life hair between the eyebrows and by the strength of yoga, with an undeviating mind, engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord with the qualities mentioned in 8.9 in full devotion, bhaktya, will certainly attain to the me.
Yeah.
certainly attain to the supreme personality of Godhead.
Yes, thank you. Right. Now, we'll first focus on 8.9 verse. Now, 8.8 verse ended where Krishna says that he who meditates on me, yeah, remembers me as Supreme Personality of Godhead, is sure to reach me. Okay, that's what he says. Right? Now, in 8.9 is continuation of 8.8, right? So 8.9, Krishna says, when we are talking about remembering Krishna as the key thing, right? He's giving, he is giving us 9 ways of remembering him. There are 9 ways of remembering Krishna here. Remembering him with different attributes of him, right? Now, first is what, as one knows everything, as one who knows everything. That's what Krishna is saying, right? We learned that Krishna, I think it was 5th chapter that we learned that, some highlights about Krishna, that Krishna is omniscient, omnipotent as well, right? So omniscient, what was omniscient? We learned, right? Omniscient is someone who knows past, present, and future, who knows everything, right? So Krishna is omniscient. That's what he's saying. If someone remembers me with this attribute, right? So the second attribute he is giving, is oldest, right? As one who is the oldest. Now, we have to remember Krishna as what? When we see oldest, it is like he's the origin of all, right? We see in Bhagavad Gita itself in further chapters where he mentioned he's the seed-giving father of this whole entire, both spiritual world and material world, right? So he's the seed-giving father. And we also learned, right, in 4th chapter that he is the one who imparted the knowledge first to Vivaswan, the sun god, right? So these are all, where we see that he is the Paramam Purusha, like we say, right? The oldest. Who is the controller? Next, he's saying controller, right? Oldest, yet the controller, right? So he's the controller of the entire. So he's the supreme controller. We learned this also in 5th chapter. Who is smaller than the smallest? What is this attribute? Smaller than the smallest. How is he smaller than the smallest?
Mataji, he resides as Paramatma in the microorganism.
Yes. So he's a super soul. Thank you, Mataji. So he's a super soul, right? And the size of the soul itself, we saw in 2nd chapter in one of the purports, you'll see that Prabhupada has highlighted the size of the, soul. It is like, if you take your tip of the hair, it is 10,000 parts. That one part is the size of the soul, right? That's it. So he's the smaller than the smallest, further. Then he talks about he being the maintainer of everything, right? We know that even in this material world, his guna avtaras, we call it, right? Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. Vishnu's responsibility is what? Maintaining, right? So as Vishnu also, he maintains everything in this material cosmic manifestation, right? So we cannot even imagine. Next, one of the characteristics of Krishna is inconceivable. We will talk later, but I'm just joining these two, that it is inconceivable for us to even understand how Krishna maintains, as simple as the planets revolving, with that specific rotation, revolution, anything we learn in our science, right? So he is inconceivable. That's why one of the names of Krishna is Achintya, right? He's inconceivable. We cannot conceive, because he is inside everything, and yet inside him is everything, right? We'll learn this in 9th chapter. How inconceivable it is. We cannot even, it's beyond our material imagination, right? That is called as inconceivable. Okay, so then he talks about sun. He is the sun, right? Why? Because he takes out all the darkness of this material nature, right? And we learn in 4th chapter why he addressed this first to sun god, because that's a representation of, taking out all the darkness, right? Now this overall ways of remembering Krishna, please be clear that it is just not specific to Yog Mishra Bhakta or some category. It is for Bhaktas. We have to understand, the opulence of Krishna, what we learned before, right? The sweetness and the opulence, these are the 9 ways we have to remember Krishna, right? Be it any Bhakta. Yeah. Now 8.10 verse talks specifically on the process. Yeah. On the process of how Yog Mishra Bhakta, reach Krishna. Yeah. And this is called as Sat Chakra Yoga. The process where we focus on various chakras in our body. Yeah, these Sat Chakra means there are 7 chakras in our body. Points. Chakras are points, different points, right? Where the life air exists, right? So these chakras are nothing but 7 different places in our body. And a Yog Mishra Bhakta, through they are yogis, right? What they do is they move their life air from the bottom, the most bottom chakra onto the top. The most top chakra is our head. We always see there's a soft place on top of our head, especially in babies, we see that. There's a middle, space where it is little bit softer. And, and as you grow, of course, but still, when we really see there is a point in our head where it is softer than other part of our skull. Yeah. So that is the top chakra, on the head. It is, there are different names of these 7 chakras, points, I'll not go into that. But yeah, what yogis do is they move the life air from the bottom chakra to the top. And they, it is, as per our scriptures, if the life air, the soul moves out, the prana moves out of the top head, yeah, then they will attain Vaikuntha, Krishna's plan. But if it goes from anywhere else, they have to, come again, right? So so that's why through their strength of yoga, they move this from lower to higher. And we learned in 6th chapter, right? For Ashtanga yogis, they need to have so many specific, there were so many specific things. They had to go out, in a secluded place. They have to only sit on kushagrass, certain level, and they have to really, control everything, So it was, we learned overall, the conclusion was that it is not practical, for today's generation. And of course, Ashtanga yoga was something which was actually, the main yoga for Satyuga, because the life of the people were, thousands, right? So, the life duration was high, so that's why they could do it, and they had better control on mind, intelligence. They had higher of that. So, but for Kali Yuga, we know that Sankirtana is the one, right? Overall, yeah. One who at the time of death fixes his life air between the eyebrows, and by the strength of yoga with an undeviating mind, engages himself in remembering Supreme Lord, right? How to remember? With all those 9 ways of remembering, which Krishna is mentioned. In full devotion, will certainly attain Krishna. Okay, so Sat Chakra Yoga is for, Ashtanga yogis who, again, this process, does it look easy? Because you have to have a complete, control over everything, right? So, and that's why Krishna is again highlighting after chapter 6 in this chapter that you can also definitely attain Krishna through all of these yoga ladders, yeah? But, how he concluded in 6th chapter that the highest and the easy than the Ashtanga yoga is the Bhakti yoga. Same way here, he shows how you can remember me through Yog Mishra Bhaktas, through that process. And then we will learn in next 2 verses how to remember Krishna through pure bhakti, yeah, through Bhakti yoga. Okay, so now 8.10, Right. I think there is, yeah, 8.11. We will continuing with the process. Now we will see remembering and results of Satchakra Yoga and the process and the destination, all three. So Krishna has given all three information for us, right? So 8.11, Jyoti Mataji, will you be able to read it?
Yes, ma'am. Requirement and result of set kakara
Chakra.
okay, kakra yoga. Person who are learned in the Vedas, Ved, who utter Omkara and who are great sages in the renounced order, Vitaraga, enter into Brahman, desiring salvation, one practice, celibacy, Brahmacharya. I shall now briefly explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation.
18.12, maybe Ramaprabha Mataji? No, sorry. Did I miss Kavya Mataji? Kavya Mataji, will you be able to?
Yes, Mataji. Process of Satchakra Yoga. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all the sensual engagements, closing all the doors of the senses, pratyahara, and fixing the mind on the heart and life air at the top of the head. One establishes himself in yoga. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. And Ramaprabha Mataji, 8.13.
Yes, Mataji. Bhagavad Gita 8.13 Destination. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the supreme personality of Godhead, Mam Anusmaran, and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets Paramam Gatim.
Thank you. So 8.11 describes about requirement and result of Satsruchi. Yeah. So person who are well versed in Vedas, yeah, who utter Om, right? Renounced order, right? They are, the Jnanis, right? They know the Vedas, and they enter into Brahman, right? Desiring such perfection, one practices Brahmacharya. These are the requirements: performing Brahmacharya, well versed in Vedas, and renounced order. 3. Yeah. So I shall now briefly explain to you this process by which one attains salvation. So we are coming now to the process of the, again, Satchakra Yoga. Yeah. Now, process is what? The yogic situation is that detachment from all sensual engagement, closing door of senses. We learned, right? Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahara, right? The 5th stage was Pratyahara, right? Where you are controlling your senses, right? And fixing the mind and heart on the life air on top of the head, right? One establishes himself in yoga. And then destination, what happens? After being situated in such focus of top of the head, and vibrating the Om syllable, yeah, the supreme combination of letters. If one thing of supreme personality of Godhead, and quits his body, he will go back to Vaikuntha, right? Now, one thing is, in the purport, it is clearly stated that the Om, right, Brahman and Lord Krishna are not different, right? Now we have to understand that the Om and Krishna, both are the same, but still they are different, right? Om is like it's the impersonal form. What is the difference between Om and Hare Krishna? Both refer to same personality, same absolute truth. But Om is very abstract, the way we are referring to God. It's like impersonal, okay? Impersonal way. Whereas Hare Krishna or Rama or Govinda, Gopal, they are the direct ways to refer to God. It's like somebody is walking in front of us and we say, hey, you, this is abstract, right? It can be referred to anybody, right? Isn't it? But if I call that person by name, so that gives a personal approach, right? and that gives a connectivity. So with the personal approach, when that comes, then when does that come, a personal approach? When I know more about that person, when I have knowledge about that person, I'm connected to that person, right? When we know more, we call that person by name instead of using an abstract, Mr. something, Mrs. something. No, you just call by name, right? So it is a direct version. It's a personal way to address the Krishna, Govinda, Rama, all this. Yeah, Hare Krishna. Whereas the impersonal way is Om syllable. Yeah, but both are linking us to absolute truth. Yeah, so we need to, and it is very nicely given in purport. That. So that's why while quitting our body, if we take Hare Krishna, it is personal. We will go back to Krishna's ultimate abode, which is Golok, right? So that's the thing, right? That's why the practice mode is different in Yog Mishra Bhakta and Pure Bhakta, right? Okay, so with that, we will now move to the next section, which is remembering Krishna through pure bhakti, which is Keval Bhakti, Uttama Bhakti, Ananya Bhakti, you can give, yeah. So Krishna is stating us both ways and explaining, why does anyone, it's like when you know both the options you have in hand, you are able to understand better, decide better, right? Which one is possible by you. That's what Krishna is giving us. He's giving us, knowledge about both ends, yeah. And if you are getting a destination, through a tough path versus an easier mode, you'd always, an intelligent person would choose the easier, right? If the destination is the same. So why take the tough path? Now he explains, after explaining the tough piece, he explains the easy. That's what he did in 6th chapter. He gives us the whole difficult process and then he says, okay, the topmost is bhakti, do that. That's the one which is for Kali Yuga, right? Okay, so now moving to 8.14 verse. Reshma Mataji, will you be able to read it? Yeah, I see you on mute, but we can't hear you. I think we lost her. No. Yes,
Hello, now?
It's now we can hear you.
Okay. Attaining Krishna is easier by Kevala Bhakti. Ananya Chetaha Satatam Yo Mam Smarati Nityasha. Aham Sulabha Partha Nitya Yuktasya Yogina. Without deviation of mind to other processes or goals, always, for one who always remembers me, from him I am very easy to obtain, O son of Partha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service.
Okay.
Everything is repeated here. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. So this verse is very important because Krishna, in this verse is using 3 times the word Ananya, Satatam, Nitya and Nitya. Nitya he is using twice in the same verse. That highlights the importance of that. Nitya is what? Always, right? Always. He's again highlighting, because we are with so low level of intelligence in Kali Yuga, he keeps on repeating how important it is to always. That's what we learned, right? Bhagavatam also, again and again, it highlights always. So this work in this verse in particularly, it mentions about pure bhakti yoga, yeah, without any mixture of jnana, karma, dhyana, nothing. Yeah, as in, this word says ananya chetaha, right? Ananya chetaha, anya means different, ananya means no other thing. Yeah? So a pure bhakti does not desire anything else, nothing. Satatam, always. He desires nothing else other than Krishna. Okay. He does not desire promotion to higher planets or liberation or, material opulence, nothing. A pure devotee does not desire anything. So perfect, so perfect peace, we say, it's desired by such people. It belongs to this class of people, not to them who strive for their personal gain. A perfect devotee has no desire other than just serving Krishna, other than just pleasing Krishna. When we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Without any personal, not for I should get this if I pray to Krishna. No. Krishna, please get pleased. Pleased by. My service you should enjoy my service. Rama is what? Pleasure, right? So we should be able to give that by our service to Krishna, that pleasure component. So Lord says, anyone who unflinchingly devotes to him, satatam, for them it will be sulabha, very easy to attain. It will be very sulabha. If they are nitya yuktasya yogam, yukta means engaged, right? So nitya, always engaged, in devotional service. So all the words here, satatam, nitya, nityashaha, and nitya, all refer to what? Which means always, regularly, every day, all this. Yeah, a pure devotee constantly remembers Krishna and meditates about him. Right? Now, this is easy to obtain. Why? Krishna is saying this is easy to obtain, right? Why? Because only focus is Krishna. Nothing else. If you have just one pointed intelligence, it's easy for you to achieve the goal rather than having several points. It's like we hear that English saying, right? Jack of all, master of none. If you have to be master of one, you have to focus on that, right? So, and only when we have that pure component of love, in our day-to-day material life also, when we have that pure, no motive behind, when we love someone, without any motive, that is 100% pure love, right? In scriptures, it is said, the most closest form of pure love for us to feel even little bit to the level of our original position of our love to Krishna, the closest you can compare that in this material world is the love between a mother and a child. And that too, a mother of a child who is 1 year young, less than 1 year old. Because the amount of selflessness a mother can give, that love to the child, that is the closest we can see in this material world, that love. So that is just tiny bit to the one which we are originally stated with Krishna. So we tend to we have to give him the most priority, like we give to our child 1 year less, most priority. No matter anybody comes home, anything you have on your plate, once the child cries, you run, right? That's your first priority. That's how it is, that's how so, and we can give that first priority to Krishna when we have that higher taste, right? That param drishtva nivartate. When we link these shlokas of Bhagavad Gita in different, chapters, we understand how systematically Krishna has given us Bhagavad Gita. He's raising our consciousness level from chapter 2, where he just started the first lesson as we are not this body, we are soul. From there, we see how slowly he is pulling up our consciousness to reach that, to at least theoretically understand, right? Which will help us through our practice. Yeah. Now, we have learned both attaining Krishna through Yoga Mishra Bhakti and Keval Bhakti. Now, the question arises, so once someone goes back to Krishna, do they come back? Let's see now. Krishna also highlights that in next verse, right? He gave the destination of the Yoga Mishra Bhakti. Now he's also giving the destination here. You know, very, very important verse, because you must have heard me saying in so many classes that this material world is dukhalayam ashashvatam. It's dukhalayam. It's, you know, so dukhalayam. Like for a school, for a library, you say pustakalayam. You know, for a liquor shop, you say madhiralaya. You know, so this world itself, Krishna is calling as dukhalayam. Okay, it's full of miseries. And ashashvatam. Ashashvatam means it's not permanent, it's temporary. So maybe I think it was Trupti Mataji, will you be able to read this 8.15?
Sure, Mataji. Hare Krishna. No rebirth for pure devotees. Mam upate punarajanma. After obtaining me, they never take birth again. Dukhalayam asashvatam. In this temporary world, which is full of miseries. Napanuvanti mahatman manaha. Such great souls never return to this world. Samasiddhim paramam gataha, having attained the highest goal of personal service to me. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. Thank you, Mataji. I want to tell something. I'm feeling, you know, when I'm reading this, I have શું કહું ગુજરાતીમાં કહી શકું છું કાંટા છે હાથના ઉપર.
You're getting thorns on your body.
Yes.
Right. See, that I'm so, you know, that's the effect Krishna just has with one verse, which we are reading.
Yes.
So, and the thing is, it's great you share that, you know, because unless we all don't share our realizations, when we hear others' realizations, it impacts us more. Right? So it is very important for us when we read these, just not to read and leave it once we get out of the class. We have to try to practice it. You know, unless we don't keep telling our mind, you know, I cannot find happiness in this world. Krishna is clearly saying, if you're trying to find happiness, anything we do, be it any relation we have, any act we do in a day, maybe even as simple as cooking or serving the cooked food, you know, or, you know, taking care of our children as a father, anything we do, what do you want? The only objective is happiness, right? We want that happiness. And what is our problem is we are searching that in this material world, right? We are making that as our top priority. That's why Krishna is highlighting here that this world is dukhalayam. It is full of miseries. It might give you in between little taste of happiness, you know, little. You see, when we really sit down, spend some time on ourselves, when we look at our whole life tenure, we see that there have been so many struggles. You can remember more points of struggles, of maybe depression, frustration, than the points where I felt happy. You know, because that is it gives us why Krishna gives that to us, so that we know the flavor, what happiness is. Only when we know the flavor, we will strive to get into it, right? Unless we don't have the flavor, we'll not, you know. And sometimes we also feel, why did Krishna do this to me? You know, it was not, you know, that is very common. I hear so many people saying that, oh, this person was such a good devotee, you know, why did this happen? You know? So be it devotee or, we learn how karma cycle is so strong. At the same time, it's like when devotees undergo that, so that to give us examples, Krishna gives that, that tough points for devotees so that we can learn from them as how they behave during that situation, right? Only when you see example in front of you, it makes an impact on you. Just hearing, yes, it does make impact. When we hear, we learn that, right? Example of a person is less powerful, than the person whom you see as an example. When you see a person as an example, that impacts you, versus to just hearing or just reading somewhere that this person was like this. Yes, you get it impacts, but not to the level when you see an example, right? So that is also thing. And I was hearing something where, like our children, my child had a habit of taking the pacifier when she was 1 year old. She used to keep on licking it. It's a small tube like which comes. And when she got to the age of 18 months plus, I decided that I have to, get it out, that habit. What I did was, I was given an idea, by someone that just put some chili powder or something, which really hurts her tooth, the taste, and then she'll stop taking. So I did that, and I showed her, see, this is, chili powder, and as soon as you take it, and she experienced that. And then next time onward, she said, no, I don't want it. So am I being a bad mother by doing that? By giving her a tough time to get rid of something which is not good for her, and ultimately giving her what is good for her, right? So same thing, Krishna gives us some tough points for our shreya, for our long term. That moment my child would have felt, oh, she's so tough, and of course she doesn't have that intelligence, but if she had, she would have really felt that, right? So she is so bad and all of that. So we have to understand there is a plan, there's a greater plan of Krishna for us, which we can't see that moment, but we will see it in due course. When we cross certain age, we look back, we feel, oh, good, it happened. Otherwise this wouldn't have happened. So, okay, sorry. Now coming back, thank you, Sakti Mataji, for sharing that. But so yes, benefits of pure bhakti is what? There is no rebirth. Mam upetya is attaining. Once you attain Krishna, punarjanma is not there in this material world. Yeah? Because this material world is dukhalayam ashashvata. Yeah? Naptuvanti mahatmana. Yeah? Mahatmanaha, great souls. Samsiddhim paramam gata. Now Krishna is using paramam gata. So their highest goal, so they have attained their highest goal. Paramam gata, his abode. Right? Now, when we see this world, like I said, it is temporary, right? Let's take the example of COVID, right? Did anyone think that in 2019 start that by 2020 this will be my state? COVID would come, I have to wear mask, I have to stay home for so long. Did we think how life was impacted, right? Now that moment we couldn't. Okay, then could anybody think there will be a second wave which will come? No, right? We never understood we never knew the concept of waves. COVID made us understand that there are different waves, right? So that's why, we don't know. This is full of dukhalam, it is like giving us toffee in between just to taste that happiness, that's all. So the supreme planet of Krishna, it is described in Vedic literature. It's in Bhagavatam, it's clearly described how Vaikuntha planets are, how people have their own, planes. The devotees have their own planes. There are desire trees. When you read in Bhagavatam, the description of spiritual world, we'll see that in next class, of course. But that is Krishna's abode. That you feel that desire, right? My child always tells me, oh, desire tree. So if I go and ask in front of the desire tree, can I give me chocolates? Will it give me? Give me cakes? Will it give me? Yes. And that excites her more. You know, she feels more desire. Okay, let me read more about this. So that desire, you know, so we should have that desire. That's what we learned last time. You know, what only thing which jivas can do is desire. So desire dovetailing to Krishna. That should be our desire. Okay. Only then the Supreme Lord will sanction it and material nature will execute it. So, so with that, next is, yes. So this is the material world. In a material world, when you know, architect or a person who is planning for a city, what all do we need in a city, right? We need residential colony, shopping malls, yes, yeah. Main attraction materially, schools, recreation, police station. What is missing here? A hospital, right? We need a hospital. This world is compared to a hospital. Yeah? Like when do we go to hospital? When we are deceased, right? And in this world, we are deceased under the three modes of material. Yeah. In hospital, we go only when we are deceased. But you know, when we go to hospital, what do? We follow all the rules and regulations. We follow the diet, which is told by the doctor. We follow everything, even though it is not easy. We don't like it, but we follow. Why? We want to come out of that disease. Same way, you know, Krishna explains in 3rd chapter that this material world is created by him as a platform, as an opportunity for us to go back to spiritual world, right? It's like a hospital. We have to follow the procedures here. You know, we have to follow the rules, which is following the 4 regulative principles, the do's and the don'ts, right? Our sadhana. And then we have to follow a proper diet. What is the diet? Prasadam, right? So when we have to follow these things so that we can get out of the hospital, we follow the rules very pakka. Why? So that we can quickly go out of the hospital. That should be our attitude in this material. We have to follow these to quickly get out of this hospital, of this material world, right? And Krishna says, how can we go back? By yagna, by sacrifice. And what is the sacrifice for Kali Yuga? Sankirtan. Okay. Okay. So, so we have just given. Please remember this picture always in your mind. This world is Dukhalayam Ashashvat. Yeah. So, and it is like a hospital. Like in hospital, what is the first thing? First step in this material world? What do they do in hospital? Diagnose. So in this material world, the diagnosis, you know, the main problem which need to diagnose is that we don't know our original identity. We have forgotten that original identity, right? Once we understand that that original identity is forgotten, then we can work, then the doctor can start working on us, only once the diagnosis is done. So in this material world, the diagnosis is our wrong identity, which we link it with ourselves. Doctors and nurses, who acts as those? The Krishna and Guru, right? And our devotee association. Medication, chanting and reading. Diet, prasadam. Precautions, 4 regulative principles, right? Exactly the same. Okay. So with that, we come to the last verse of today, which is, which is 8.16. So I'll come back to Hari Krishna Prabhuji. Will you be able to read it?
Yeah, yes, Madam. Rebirth is in all planets except it's not absolute truth. A Brahma Bhuvanavaloka Punar Avartino Arjuna Mam Upetyatu Kaunteya Punar Janmana Vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, take repeat birth and death. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never take birth again. From the highest planet in the material world
down to the lowest, all are places of misery, wherein repeated births and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again.
Thank you. So see, Krishna told us Yog Mishra Bhakta, then Kevala Bhakta, then their destination. Now Krishna, if somebody says, what if there is any other planet where there is no rebirth? So Krishna is clarifying that. No doubt for us in our mind. From the highest to the lowest of this material, every place you go, there will be rebirth. You will undergo the cycle of birth and death. Only Krishna's abode. You don't have to come back, right? Krishna is highlighting the exclusivity of his abode here. Yeah, specifically highlights Brahma Loka because that's the topmost planet for us, right? Of this material world. So even from there, people come back. Okay, so we need to know this now. When we are talking about these different planets, I think we have shared this slide before, but just so that it sits properly, it registers properly. This is Bhurloka, which is us, Earth planet. Yeah. Now above Earth is Bhuvar, which is so above there are higher planets. Yeah, which are 6 in number. These are higher planets 6, and the topmost is Satyaloka, which is Brahmaloka, is also called as Satyaloka, where Brahmaji resides, right? And the bottom there are 7 planets: Athala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatal, Mahatal, Rasatal, and Patal. Okay, so these are 7 of the whole creation. I'll just tell you in a small gist. So Krishna expands into Mahavishnu. Mahavishnu expands into Garbhodakya Vishnu. Yeah, Garbhodakshayi Vishnu is the one who is lying here in the Garbhodaka ocean. Yeah, from the navel of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, this lotus stem, it sprouts, from which Brahma ji comes up. Yeah, now this lotus stem is where all the 7 or the 14 planets reside. Yeah, throughout. It is the base. Yeah, and we are in the middle. That's why we say if you do this is the middle planet basically. And we see how, of course, Durga Devi is the one who takes care of the whole material universe, one material universe. Yeah, she's the one where we see material modes of nature, right? And we see how all the 8 elements which we learn, the layers of each universe, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. These are the 8 layers around this universe. Okay, and each layer, like the earth layer is this one, 10 times thicker than the prior layer. It is mentioned here. We have put it in the slide so that you can go through later on. Yeah, but this is how one universe, is structured. Yeah, and then this is the slide where we show that this is one universe, yeah, where Garbhodakya Vishnu is there, lying in the Garbhodakya Vishnu. And there is a Karana ocean where Mahavishnu lies. And from Mahavishnu, body pores, where he breathes in and breathes out. Several universes come similarly. Each universe again has a Garbhodakya Vishnu, Dakshayi Vishnu, and then from him comes the Brahmaji. Yeah, same process. Now we see how in this material world, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, it is the personal form like we learned today. It is directly taking us to Golok Vrindavan. Yeah, so this is the spiritual world. In spiritual world also we see, there is Vaikuntha planets. There are a number of Vaikuntha planets here, of different expansions of Krishna. Yeah, and then comes the, on top comes the Golok Vrindavan. Okay, you will find this in most of the ISKCON temples you go. Yeah, the spiritual world and the material world. It's very interesting. So for me, it was very interesting when I learned it first. So it shows us that how tiny we are. We are like nothing when it comes to all the structure. Yeah, and still everything is controlled by Krishna. Yeah? So it's amazing, and that's why it's inconceivable. It's beyond our material senses, yeah, and intelligence. So with that, we will end today's session. And